In today's video, we're going to learn how to paint the Sky Earth NMM on the Void Dragon.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So in today's video, I'll be showing you guys how I painted the Sky Earth NMM on the Void Dragon. This Sky Earth NMM has some pretty interesting concepts, and I'd like to share with you guys my thought process of how I've achieved this Sky Earth NMM effect, and you can do that too. So there are going to be two videos on this Void Dragon series. The first video, which is this video, will be focusing on the Sky Earth NMM, and the second video will be doing all the rest of the parts, such as the NMM Gold, the glow, and the black stone which he is floating upon. So if you're ready, let us begin. So, are you ready to paint some Sky Earth NMM? Get ready these colors and we can get painting very soon. But first and foremost, I'd like to talk about some concepts about Sky Earth NMM. So for Sky Earth NMM, what we are trying to replicate is a highly glossy and highly reflective surface right here. By this explanation by WH40K, I'm really inspired to see how I can replicate this effect onto miniatures. As you can see, the shapes and different volumes reflect the sky and earth differently, hence the name Sky Earth NMM. So moving on to the next reference image, you can compare a reflective image such as chrome on the left and other materials such as a maybe glossy metal surface right here. So this is the difference between painting a chrome surface and painting a metal surface on NMM. Alright, so we are going to begin painting the Sky Earth NMM by applying these concepts on the Necron Void Dragon. Okay, so after talking about Sky Earth NMM, what we want to plot in is we want to start plotting in the sky. So for Sky Earth NMM, what I've noticed is upward facing surfaces tend to have a higher value and tend to be bluish in nature. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm using Vallejo model color Fuel Blue to sketch in the upward facing surfaces. Don't worry, as this can be corrected with a dark brown later. The model has been primed with Krylon Camo Brown as a base, and you can very easily replicate the color with black and brown mixed together. So now I'm just plotting in the surfaces that are facing up, and I'm trying to create as sharp a contrast as possible for these areas so that I can replicate the horizon in later stages. So pay particular attention to rounded areas, because for Sky Earth NMM, the rounded areas will need to be portrayed very uniquely, and it will be very different from how we normally paint volumes. So right here you can see with subsequent layers, I'm trying to reinforce the value near the horizon line, sort of like a sketch to show where the highlights are going to be subsequently. If you would like to know where to place the highlights, you can always refer back to the first reference image which I used from WH40K, and you can see all the upward facing things are bluish in nature. That's why I'm just placing these values right here as a sketch. Okay, in the subsequent step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reinforcing the horizon line. So as mentioned before, just now, a black ground can easily refine the horizon line, and I'm placing particular attention to the rounded volume such as the biceps and individual muscles. So I'm making sure that the horizon will show, because the horizon is where sort of like the middle line of the volume is. And this horizon line, I'm trying to paint this Void Dragon in Necron invasion, and I can imagine that his environment would be filled with green light from all the Necron energy. So now I'm just plotting in the horizon line and to clean up some of my mistakes which I've made in the previous step. So now we have cleaned up the horizon line, we're going to start painting in the light source. So this light source would probably be some kind of sun, and this I'm going to be sketching in the light source. Right now I'm using Vallejo model color pale blue gray as a sort of like an intermediate highlight so that I can place and make it very obvious where the horizon line is. Remember, for Sky Earth NMM, what defines a acceptable Sky Earth NMM would be the horizon line and the sun shining over the horizon. That's why we are starting to place this in. And for Sky Earth NMM, we also like to place in some overhead light sources, hence what you've seen on the deltoid. And right here, what I'm sketching in for the quadricep, I'm placing in some other additional highlights to create the Sky Earth NMM effect. In Vallejo model color Field Gray with the previous color Pale Blue Gray to sort of blend in and create an intermediate highlight. So this intermediate highlight that I'm creating right here will be used to create sort of like the diffusing effect from the main light source. I'm also going to be using this to tone down some of the values so that the entire miniature doesn't look like it's glowing. I want it to look like it's reflecting light but not glowing. Okay, so this is used to soften some of the transitions and to give him an overall smooth transition. So right here in the thigh, I want to draw your attention to this particular point, because right here I'm placing in one additional highlight between muscles. So my perception of this is how the chrome metal works is that it will reflect some light, and some of the reflected light is in return reflected back onto other muscles, hence this back and forth reflecting causing this reflection right here. So right here I'm adding in Vallejo model color pastel green as the reflected light from the environment. I'm differing a little bit from Rafael Pica's color scheme because I want to make sure that this environment is a Necron invaded environment rather than a desert, hence a little bit green. You can also use similar colors if it's flying in a meadow or green field where knight is carrying a chrome shield. That's totally fine too. Alright, so I'm just plotting in some of the key highlights before adding in a little bit of the brown, and I will be blending that in the subsequent steps. Right now, still using Vallejo model color pastel green. Okay, so now I've added in a little bit of Joe Sonia olive green to blend in the transition between the pastel green as well as the brown, which is from the camo Krylon. and to ease up the transitions. For most of the paintwork, you will observe that I hardly blended at all. Most of my transitions are a little bit patchy. However, what's important and what I want to re-emphasize is that the light placement has to be correct in order for this effect to be convincing. In any doubt, always refer to the reference image right at the start of the video where Rafael Pica has shown. I think that is a very good place to start if you want to create some convincing Sky Earth NMM. Okay, so right here I'm using some Vallejo Model Color Ivory. So with Vallejo Model Color Ivory, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create extreme highlights, areas of glint, such as in between these muscles where lights are bouncing back and forth. These areas of glint are areas where light will be concentrated, and with regular material painting, you can also place them on areas with the strongest highlight. Okay, so right here, I'm continuing to blend the green back to make sure that the transition between the brown and the green is, in my opinion, smoother. It won't be seamless, but yeah, what I'm trying to create is just smoother. So right here, from now on, it's going to be a very back and forth process where I look at the image and I correct it based on my intuition. And this part of the video will serve as a commentary to see where I've corrected, and hopefully you'll learn some things from my comments, because I'm trying to see based on intuition what I would change and why I would change this. So right here I'm adding a little bit of green onto the blue to show that these things don't exist in isolation. Okay, now I'm adding in a little bit of Joe Sonia, raw umber, a bit of green and pale blue to reduce the values. So I would say that this reduction of values on the right side of the thigh is an amalgamation of the sky light as well as the green light from the invasion. So hence, mixing all the colors together, you get this very grayish desaturated color, because the lights do mix together in the environment, and this is the effect that it will show. Okay, so in any doubt, this part is referenced in the second reference image in this video. So I find that while we paint Sky Earth NMM, sometimes it's also useful to reincorporate our knowledge of values and volumes, and how to make entire volumes, despite being reflective, still look like volumes. Okay, so now I'm re-emphasizing some of the glint. As mentioned, this color is Vallejo Model Color Ivory. Just placing in some of the extreme highlights to show where light has been concentrated. So areas on the horizon line where the sun is tends to have more of this color, and it won't be sort of like in a regular line. There will be a sun being painted on these areas as well. So you will see that painted on the chest, the forearm, and every single area where I've illustrated that there is some degree of light. Okay, like such. So I'm re-emphasizing the sun on the chest right here. And I'll be doing some touch-ups back and forth, blending in the transitions. Alright, so right here I'm going to be adding in the Himmel. The Himmel will be added in using a glaze of Games Workshop Drakenhof Nightshade. This is to increase the saturation of the blue in some of the areas so that the blue will transit into a grey, into a white for the horizon, and for the bottom part of the horizon, it will transit from a brown to a green to a lighter green. Okay. Okay, so with a lot of cleanup and smoothing, I'm going to be finishing. Alright, so this is the final effect. As you can see, I've smoothed out a lot of the transitions on this Sky Earth NMM to create a convincing effect. But always remember, first and foremost, the most important thing is the correct light placement and the correct shapes to be re-emphasized. So that was how I painted the Sky Earth NMM. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this tutorial, and do remember, share it with your friends if you found it useful. So moving on to the rest of the Void Dragon, we'll be covering the NMM Gold, the green electricity glows, as well as the black stone which he's standing upon. So at this point of time, I'd like to thank my patrons for generously supporting me and allowing me to do this. It's through the help of my generous patrons I'm able to record and paint this awesome tutorial so that we all get to become better miniature painters together. Alright, so the exclusive video for this time round is the Bloody Copper NMM, which I painted on the Night Rampager, which you can see right here. So if you'd like to support me for as low as $1 a month, you get to see my finished works before anybody else in this world. Alright, so I hope you go over to the Patreon and support me and my journey to create these awesome tutorials for everybody to enjoy. However, if you can't become a patron, that's okay too. I'd like to appreciate your time for watching to the end, and if you could, please leave a like and subscribe because it tells YouTube that this content is relevant for you guys and more people get to see that. Alright, so I hope to see you in the next video. See you!